out there, I just like because nowadays they don't do it to me, but the other young people out there.
How many persons you have in your modeling
I got
agency?
16
16
models,
ages.
some like 16, 18
And they look up to you as a role
as a
model.
role model, yo.
Do they do you try to hit on some of them, or is it that did they see you and want and ask you
But some like people always feel like being models like you gay.
about right?
Like a lot of my models in my agency, they are not like that.
Okay.
Yeah, they are not like
How are
that.
you with the lesbian community? You have lesbian
I
friends?
got a lot of lesbian
When you
friends.
say a lot, what do you mean?
Like there are so many.
Really?
Some of them are married and they like
No way.
I'm telling you.
No freaking way.
So that's it.
You give okay.
Man, I can say I'm
Okay.
not afraid to
Uh-huh.
say.
What did you say?
99% of Liberian men they are gay,
Okay.
and they are highly honorable because they feel like society is going to look at them
Wrong.
differently.
So
Wrong,
let's
yeah.
give us a percentage of women.
Like the couple of like spirit friends I have.
Give us a you look at the men and say 99.
But
Give us-
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jar.
Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Friday Night Debate on Focus on Liberia. Our debate question tonight is homosexuality versus corruption, rape, and child molestation. Which of these do Liberians frown upon the most, or which of these do they hate the most? With me to discuss this very important topic, we have from G Talk, Glendy Genius. Glendy, welcome to the show, Friday Night Debate. Let's debate.
Hello, Dennis. Hello, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah.
I also want to welcome the famous Moses, that's Steve Bole. Steve, welcome to Friday Night Debate.
Dennis, thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here. Happy New Year to all of the guests. Happy New Year to Focus on Liberia family, and it's always good being here. Thank you.
I want to also welcome Mrs. Alice Welle Morba. Alice, welcome to the show. This Friday Night Debate.
Thank you, Dennis. As always, it's a pleasure being on your show.
We want to welcome the unapologetic citizen, Mr. Jerome Gilman, who is the host of On Point right here on Focus on Liberia. Mr. Gilman, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's always an honor to be on your show to discuss issues. This particular day, I love the issues because these are issues that are clear cut. We got some data, we got some information that we can share and discuss. So I'm delighted to be here, and Happy New Year to all the panelists.
Thank you. We also want to welcome someone who supports Focus on Liberia. He's always watching, he's always commenting, even contributing. As Mr. Elvis Morris. Elvis, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Jai. And then I want to say hello to everybody on the panel. And I think that little clip that we just watched with Steve Bode making certain assertions, I think that's going to turn up the heat tonight on this debate. But thank you again for having me on. Right.
Thank you. And I want to mention that the Liberian, I think it was in 2012 when the law was passed in our country, banning same-sex marriage. So tonight we're not going to be discussing, the legal aspect of it, but we want to go around the room now and get your feelings about these things that are listed. We have corruption, we have rape, and we have child molestation, child abuse. Compare that to homosexuality. How do Liberians feel about these things? Which one do they hate the most and why? So let me get your opening. G-Talk love to talk about these things. So let me start with Glendy. Glendy, how you feel? What do you think the Liberian people, many of them are when it comes to homosexuality on one hand and then corruption, rape, and child abuse on the other hand? Which one they really kind of have some tolerance level and which one they don't? You are muted, Glendy.
Sorry. I think for the most part, I would say, in my opinion, that Liberians are not tolerant to homosexuality. That's just what I've seen. That's even what people have experienced and talked about. I think we are more tolerant to corruption. I also want to state here that the four things should not be placed in the same category. We should not look at homosexuality as, I understand there's a law, but we should not look at homosexuality in the same light of corruption, child abuse, and rape. I think it's a separate issue altogether. They could end up being connected, but I think it's different. And I think that Liberians are not tolerant of homosexuals.
Thank you. And we'll go around the room, but let me mention here that the goal here tonight is what we have observed, in Liberia, and that's why we want to talk about this. We don't want to use the show tonight to tell people who is gay or who is not gay, unless people come out to identify themselves as being gay. Our role here is not to call people out or tell people they are gay or not, because we have no way to prove what goes on in people's bedroom, or you can tell from somebody how they look or how they talk. This time, let me go to Mr. Elvis Morris and see how you feel about this.
Thank you, Mr. Jai. And I just want to say, I agree with Glendy when she says homosexuals are viewed more of a pariah than even people who molest little children, pedophiles. And I can relate to that clip because when I was a child growing up in Liberia, my mom told me the exact same thing. There was this guy who used to go to church at First Baptist Church in Congo Town. And he had this little flamboyant coat suit. He was walking down, he's walking in this kind of effeminate way. My mom always used to tell me, stay away from that guy. He's a gay. It was this whole finger pointing. So I was laughing when that guy was saying that because it takes me back to my childhood. So people who are gay are seen more like a pariah, and people look at them and throw talks to them. But you have somebody in the community who is a child molester, who is sleeping with a 13-year-old or 12-year-old girl, and that person is a respectable member of the society. So is pedophilia more acceptable than homosexuality? I think we can juxtapose those two things. But obviously, growing up in the United States, for the vast majority of my life, my view on this topic has changed, from when I was back home in Liberia. Obviously, I'm a heterosexual male, but people who are gay should be, allowed to be themselves, like that guy was saying. As long as they're not, promoting pedophilia, chasing after little kids, which is against the law, it should be against the law. Let them be let them be themselves. If they're in two, what's the word? Two people who agree, two adults who agree, consenting relationship with a grown male or a grown lady, let them be themselves. I'll just leave it at that, and I'll let other people jump in.
Thank you. Let me go to Steve.
Well, I like to come from a cultural, religious, societal, and just from the part of the world we are located, Africa, the issue of gay or homosexuality, or however you want to term it as, seem to be something that's, rejected off the bat, in our culture, in our societies. And it's based on different factors, which we don't have time here to maybe to go into, but I believe those who travel like Elvis, like myself and other people might, be more open-minded, considering in the Western world and other places, be more considerate. The issue of gay homosexuality in this different society, they're acceptable. You don't have to deal with them. You don't have to be involved with it. But, we work with people who are homosexuals or gays or so forth on a daily basis, as opposed to Liberia. I think then it becomes a stigma. People look at you differently. People consider you differently. People see you differently. And again, it all goes back to, how we're raised culturally, religiously, and just our personal beliefs based on what we're seeing from the society and ethnicity. I'd stop there.
Thank you. Let me go to Mrs. Moba. Welly?
Yeah, Dennis, basically the issue of homosexuality in Liberia, people look at it so bad because culturally, like my fellow panelists said, these are things people consider to be taboo. And with a country like Liberia, where nothing is really monitored, the laws are very weak. Parents tend to take a decision by informing their kids to keep away from individuals that are considered homosexuals. And because of the laws being weak, folks who are homosexuals, people are not comfortable because you don't know whether they're going to indoctrinate your child. So parents tend to take a different position, informing the kids from early age how to be careful with certain individuals that are perceived to be homosexual. But the issue of child pedophiles, corruption, and rape, these are things people look at to be, but they are as much, creating more issues in the community as what they think. So I feel like I'm more tolerant to the other things like rape, child abuse, and corruption. They are very tolerant as opposed to homosexuality, and it's all boils down to culture. Culturally, it's not acceptable to even pass that into law. It made it even worse. So people are taking positions on homosexuality.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Gibbon.
Well, off the bat, I want to let you know that I am a conservative. I am a Republican. As a person who has interest in the social sciences, the question that have not been answered, we have always talked about is nature versus nurture. That question has never been answered. Couple that with my bachelor background, my cultural understanding. In years ago, in one of my cultural anthropology classes, there was a survey done. We have kids from 10 African countries, and they were asking us to name what homosexuality meant in our tribe or in our languages. And basically, everybody had no name of homosexuality. And in the Bassa language, I do not recognize any word that would correspond with homosexuality. Secondly, even the United States, where we have access to many data, we have begun the conversation. It was purely homosexual meant gay. Now it has extended L, B, G, Q. Now they have added plus. The conversation began that we need an extra bathroom for gay people. Now we have added lesbian, we have added non-binary and Q, and it goes on and on and on. So it when they dilute the conversation and validate those of us who are coming from a cultural and spiritual background, that it is unsettled. So most of us are not comfortable with homosexuality because nobody knows what it is.
So in your view, in Liberia, do we have some tolerance of corruption compared to homosexuality, or some tolerance of child molestation or rape?
If we were putting them on the scale, homosexuality would be at the bottom of the hell pit. No tolerance. I would say 98.999% of the Liberians, maybe outside of Monrovia, will have no tolerance for homosexuality.
Thank you. Ladies and
Mr.
gentlemen,
John, can I
yeah,
ask for 30 seconds, please?
you will come in. I just want to announce the show again. This is a Friday night debate, and we are treading cautiously because these are topics that people don't want to discuss, but want to discuss them right here on Focus on Liberia. I'm saying comment to say, well, then that's why you even put them in the same sentence. It means you are equating homosexuality to corruption or rape or that. No, that's not what I'm doing. I'm looking at the landscape in Liberia and the news coming from there. What is it that we can tolerate? And what is it that people hate the most? And that's why I put them in the same sentence so that we can have this discussion tonight. So let all of us have an open mind and discuss it. Go ahead with your 30 seconds. I want to play a clip from President Sirleaf.
Yeah, I just want to respond to Mr. Gayman. I think in the Bible, if you're talking about being a conservative and having a religious view, if you're looking at the Bible, right, I think one of the only times Jesus called for violence was with pedophiles. He said, those who hurt the little ones, you should tie a millstone around the neck and throw them into the deepest part of the ocean. So I think for me, pedophilia is the worst of all of these things that we're discussing, especially, you know, that comes into, that goes into child abuse as well. So I think people who abuse children are the worst scum of the earth, you know, rather than somebody who is having consensual sex with somebody who is a consenting adult of the same gender, you know. So for me, I just want to make that clarification, and I'll let you, you know, play the clip.
Yeah, and Steve, before I play the clip, I didn't quite understand. In your view, you think homosexuality is hated the most in Liberia compared to corruption, child abuse, and rape?
In my view, I would think homosexuality, it's viewed as evil and hated more. And it's all, again, it bogs down to culture, society. It also bogs down to religion to some extent. But then also, on the contrary, it comes down to, you know, the educational factor. For example, in Liberia, somebody will abuse, molest a child, and maybe we'll go into it during the conversation. And guess what? The family will go talk about it. They'll go talk about the family we are in the church. You know, but then guess what? Then they prosecute, or they go, you know, they would go after maybe people who are homosexual because of religious reasons, cultural reasons, and so forth. So that's my position on that. I think homosexuality is hated, and they have used now. They've even taken it to the extent wherein they've used homosexuality to some extent, you know, to ostracize, alienate, and stigmatize people. Thank you.
All right. This subject, to tell you that is a difficult one to discuss in Liberia. President Sirleaf was asked, you know, about decriminalizing the law that makes this, you know, a crime in Liberia. And listen to what she said.
Your position on decriminalizing homosexual acts in Liberia?
I've already taken a position on that we're not going to sign any such law.
You won't sign any law to decriminalize?
I won't sign any law that has to do with that area, none whatsoever. We like ourselves just the way we are.
And what about decriminalizing the current law?
Quite frankly, I'm not quite sure even if we're going to see a law go through our legislature on that, so I doubt it seriously.
But at the moment, I mean, voluntary sodomy is illegal at the moment. So in essence, homosexuality for two gay men under the books is illegal in Liberia.
We've got certain traditional values in our society that we'd like to preserve.
So you're saying you wouldn't decriminalize that current law?
I've just said to you, we're going to maintain our traditional values.
Mr. Blair, Ban Ki-moon has urged African leaders to stop treating gay people as second-class citizens and criminals, given that good governance and human rights go hand in hand. What is your advice to Madam President and Liberia on this gay rights issue?
Yeah, one of the advantages of doing what I do now is that I can choose the issues I get into and the issues I don't. So You know, for us, the priorities around power, roads, jobs, delivery. I'm not saying these issues aren't important for the president's given her position, and this is not one for me.
So good governance and human rights don't go hand in hand.
Damison, you know how long I've been doing these types of interviews?
I do know.
Right, okay. So I'm not giving you an answer on it.
All right. Even Tony Blair say, I'm not even touching it. Glendy, you are smiling. What do you make of the interview? You are muted.
I'm listening to President Salif, and I think her response summarizes the views of Liberians or people in general on certain issues. That response is almost like, I don't want to talk about this. So when she's saying we're preserving our values, homosexuality may not be a value in a Liberian culture, in a Liberian church, in a Liberian home. So we're not talking about it. We're going to continue to do what we're doing, man and woman, and not man and man or woman and woman. So it's I think what Steve said, all of these things can be linked to our cultural upbringing. It can be linked to religion, what we've learned, and it can be linked to how people that lived before us tolerated it. So because tolerance was at zero, we grew up also not tolerating and also hating that form of life. Society has evolved. We also have evolved from our tradition, from where we live. We've come into other places and we see that it's okay for people to live the way they want to be, but there is still religion that bars certain people, for maybe Christians or certain religion that say this is wrong and this is not the right way. So it's just, I just think people still frown on discussing this topic, but I think it's something that we need to talk about. And we also need to not alienate people because of their choice and what they've decided to become.
Alice, let me ask you, you said Liberians frown on homosexuality more than corruption. Why do you think this is so?
Well, as you know, in Liberia, probably we can say 98% of people in Liberia consider themselves Christian. If you went to Liberia today, on Sunday, you see almost everybody dressed up to go to church. And so the Bible that was introduced to our people, the Bible forbids that. Culturally, it is forbidden because our people believe in procreation, and they feel that, you know, some of the things like being gay, something like being gay, goes against their culture. And so they tend to really be frowning, like they will take a stern position when it comes to homosexuality, because this is something they don't really want to tolerate. Like the president we listen to, Madame Salif, said she doesn't even want to talk about it because, you know, something like that is considered taboo, or it used to be considered taboo, especially when you go up in the interior part of Liberia. People used to get killed because they is a homosexual. He could be killed. So this is complete taboo. They don't talk about it. It is forbidden. I'm not surprised if people in Liberia that consider themselves Christians will go against gay people. It's not like they don't like that as human beings, but they don't really like what they think they are practicing. And because of that, they really go against it. They will, you know, treat them differently. They will stigmatize them, and they could even get killed if they could get killed.
Alice, what
boils down to our culture, upbringing, most Christians have in Liberia. So on their Christian values, they go against that, and they will you know, ostracize gay people if
So Alice,
If they were
can you hear
given
me?
chance to do that, if there are no laws not protecting them. Yes, I can hear you now.
Right. It said even homosexuality is in the deepest part
can
of the
hear you.
interior, has far back, has our history. That's what people tell me. And is it because people are not open about it, or is it the culture? And which part of this culture do we want to hold, and which part of it do we want to reject?
Well, I think because of the culture, because they believe, okay, from the onset. Can you?
Yeah, you have some connection issue. There's a delay at your end.
Yeah, Mr. Ja, I would like to rebut real quick if you can give me the chance, please.
I want to go to Mr. Gaiman before. Mr. Gaiman, why you think people in Liberia frown upon homosexuality more than, as we said, rape or corruption? Where does that come from?
Well, like I said, you know, those of us who were born in the interior, who are closely cultured, that speak the language very well. At one time wrote the language. My Methodist upbringing, my father being a preacher, my mother being a missionary, all of these things may have had some influence on my upbringing. My politics being as conservative as it is, also, I would say, compounding that. And then the literature, like I said, the debate on nature versus nurture have not been settled. And those of us who are educated in the West that want to be liberal and accommodating, we find out that the word gay and lesbian has been extended to the point where it has become a slippery slope. Now you will see, like I told you, LGBT now plus Q. And it just keeps going, and it compounds the confusion as we speak. So for those of us who are seriously conservative and believe in a man and a woman, we find it very confusing. As educated as we all are, I still cannot find myself accepting that lifestyle.
So Mr. Gaiman, before I let you, you said the word gay is not in the Bassa language. Do you have internet, computer, and even car?
No, not at all.
Right. So that means you don't come on the internet because there's no Bassa language for internet?
Well,
excellent point.
Well, I have never been offended by the internet. The internet have never done anything to me that if I didn't want, I could turn it off, or like I'm on this show, if I didn't like the show, I have an option, go to another show or turn to another channel. But once a child is a man, sleep with another man, just the thought of it. I live in a conservative state of Florida. Just yesterday, one of my twin girls called me and said, Daddy, there's a sixth grader in South Florida that developed a program. And in that program, anybody whose name begins with that has gay in it, it would automatically pop up. And hundreds and thousands of folks' name pop up, and our name pop up. So everywhere she went, she says, Daddy, our name is on the gay list. And in the state of Florida, you don't say gay. There's a law. I mean, it's comical, but we say do not say gay. So that's the big kind of joke that is going on. But it goes beyond just little Grand Bassa County or the Bassa tribe. I think it is something that is conservative. It is cultural, like we say.
But they do have conservatives that are gay. I keep hearing you talking about conservative. They have conservatives that are gay. They have Democrats that are gay. The gay class is not just limited to one group of people.
Absolutely.
And that's why I wanted to come in, Mr. Jai. Please give me 30 seconds.
Let Gaiman finish with his.
1 minute. I'm also familiar with the literature from the time I was in undergraduate school to now. When you look at the literature, it says across the board between 5 and up to 18% of every culture has that problem. Okay, so that is a literature that has been everywhere I have gone up to graduate school. It has been consistent. So yes, when you look at the numbers, we have Bassa people, we have Gribble people, we have fellow people that are gay. From what I read it is, but the idea that we do not accept it, you have the choice to accept it, and culturally we have frowned upon that.
Thank you, Elvis. What's the reason behind this?
Right, and that's where I want to go to Mr. I wanted to rebuff Mr. Gaiman. The reality is, if you're looking at it from a prism of religion, then you have to equate it to, let's say, adultery. Being gay and being an adulterer have the same punishment. You're supposed to be stoned and put to death. So if a woman who is married today and commits adultery, should she also be, put to death, for example? So we can't look at we're not living in a theocracy. We're not living in a government that's governed by, based on our Bible or our theology that we practice. So when Mr. Gaiman said anything else apart from culture, that's when I disagree with him. We can't base laws on our belief in terms of religion, because you have the Muslim who wants you have the Muslim who wants Sharia law in our country or in other countries, and it's gonna marginalize of other people who don't believe in that religion. So the point that I'm trying to make, and I think Ms. Glandy made that point, you have a lot of Republicans, some of them being governors, representatives, who have been staunch, anti-gay people, and then later on you find out they were closeted gay. They come out in drag shows, they're doing all kinds of things. The thing I want to tell you on this show is that for many of us in the United States, my life has never been impacted by a gay person. I live my life every day. I barely even notice or even see gay people when I go around, go to work, go to the store. It's never impacted me in a negative way whatsoever. Our personal relationship with God, for those of us who are Christian, is a personal relationship. So if a person who is gay has the same freedom as me, doesn't impact me in any way or take away any of my rights. So if we're going to call ourselves the land of liberty, but we have, let's say, 10 or 15% of the population who are not free, who cannot be themselves, how are we a land of liberty? So Mr. Gaiman, somebody like you, who, let's say, for example, you have a family member. A lot of us here, have different people who ascribe to different beliefs. You have a family member who is gay. What do you tell that person? Should they not have the same rights that you have? Can they not go to the grocery store without being mocked or harassed? I mean, we always look at this thing as the others. When it comes to our own personal lives, then we try to have some adjustment. Look at Dick Cheney, for example, a quote-unquote conservative. His daughter is gay. When Obama passed the gay marriage law, he went to his daughter's wedding and gave her away to her wife. So and look at Tubman. Tubman had a son who was openly gay, come from a very powerful, family. He was gay. He lived that way his rest of his life until he died recently. So I'm not advocating for being gay, but I'm also advocating to let people be who they are. As long as they're not committing pedophilia, which is against our law, let them be themselves. Thank you again. I'll pass the mic.
Thank you. Let me go to Steve. Steve, tell me, especially in your professional background, will do us a favor here. Corruption, rape, and child abuse will negatively impact Liberians more, in my view, than two consenting adults having an affair, right? So the issue that Liberians in Liberia frown most on, mainly on homosexuality than they do on corruption. Is it an issue with education? Is it an issue with that they don't know how this thing impact them? Or tell me why? Well, or are they saying that gay business impact people negatively more than corruption and rape? Is that an issue?
Well, first of all, I think it's important for us to clear the air on some things while we're addressing this question, such as we can respect the rights of people. We can also respect the choices of people. Yet, we still we don't have to support them. It doesn't mean you hit them. I don't support anything. I want to be clear on the record. that has to do with homosexuality or gay, I don't support it. I respect their rights. I don't support it in any way, shape, or form. Part of the reasons behind it, since you talked about whether it is the economy, whether it is, because this conversation we're having has a social impact, it has a political impact, it has a religious impact, and we have to be considerate. Now, China a few years ago lifted the ban on the amount of children that they could have. And part of the reasons for that also, we have to take into consideration, and every time I bring up this conversation, some people get uneasy and they take it personal, but these are my views. Part of the reasons for that is also there are economic reasons to that and political reasons. You want replication. In a sense of gay and homosexuality, those things normally don't happen. I know somebody will say, well, but even heterosexual people, someone that can get married, the percentage is very low. People who are homosexuals or gays normally don't give birth. And you need to give birth. You need to replicate. I'm not trying to say people should hate homosexual or gay people.
Right.
If you choose to go that route, that's fine. But also on the issue of corruption, the issue of corruption is a little different. I want to agree with our people here. In as much that it affects or it impacts the economy, I want to agree with our people that the issue of corruption, child abuse, and molestation, all of them have a correlation at some point. I'll give you an example. B.F. Skinner, from 1958 to 1974, he was a psychologist professor at Harvard. He came up with a theory, and we use that theory up until today, that every behavior you see, it can either be cut off or it can also be embraced or enhanced, such as you have two ways. You either reward that behavior or you punish that behavior. When it comes to the issue of corruption, it comes to the issue of, molesting children or pedophilia, all these different things. These behaviors over the years, they have been enhanced by leaders, by government officials. And I will also say, uncover the issue of homosexuality in our country has been happening, has been enhanced. You know why? Only now maybe people speaking of it is getting, prevalent all over the society because of the internet and other things. But these things have been encouraged in our country directly and indirectly by leaders from the churches, because I find out that even some pastors in the churches, they preach on Sunday against homosexuality, but they are homosexual themselves. That one has a different conversation. In a nutshell, we have to get to the point wherein, as a nation, if we are going to reward this behavior, they are going to continue. If we are going to punish them, more likely so, they would be discontinued.
So my question here is, so which one? So you're saying if we punish corruption, it's going to be discontinued. If we punish rape, it's going to be discontinued.
No. I'm saying if we punish corrupt officials,
right,
such as holding them accountable,
right,
putting sanctions on them, taking them to jail, making sure that they restitute the money or the things that they took back. If we punish pedophilia, people who hurt little children, abuse women, if we punish them, hold them accountable, if we also go ahead and punish, let's say, people who commit crime, such as holding them accountable and not be making excuses, then I'm saying we would become better. Now, also, here is the law. The article that you are talking about, and I want to go back a little bit on that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf tip, because
Steve, before you even go there, I just want to see the negative impact that homosexuality is having on the country compared to corruption, child abuse, and rape.
What the negative impact is, it has a, whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, you can go and research it. There's an economic factor to it. There's a reproductive factor to it. I know some people will say, but I want grandchildren. I want my name to continue. Who say I don't want the name Bole to continue? I do. How do I get grandchildren? I don't look in the sky and get grandchildren. Pregnancy, that are airborne disease. People must mate, man and woman. They must mate to have children. So I'm saying in a nutshell These are some of the things that could potentially impact the country from a negative standpoint. These are my views, and these are also facts that they have the impact. They can impact the country at some point. And I'm predicting on your show that down the line, the U.S. government might look into reverting some of these laws when it comes to homosexuality, same-sex marriage, abortion laws, and so forth. That is my prediction.
That's nonsense. To say that, that's nonsense.
Well, I wouldn't have you abuse me or attack my position.
No, that's nonsense.
Don't talk to me like that, man.
Mr. Job.
No, you don't talk to me like that.
If Steve is going to come on the show,
you don't talk to me like that.
Hold on.
I'm not sure what you ate or what got you excited. Don't bring that nonsense to me. Don't talk to me like that.
Okay, guys.
Are you serious?
Let have this guy clarify his view when he said that guy being gay.
No, guys. Hold on. Let me go to Glendy. And Glendy, your response. I'm talking about
saying nonsense, spewing hate.
Guys, don't use nonsense here, please. Glendy, let me get your view as to the negative impact.
I'm out of here. I ain't got no time for no disrespect.
Glendy, let me get your view on the negative impact of.
You have not done anything wrong. I don't think you should leave.
Let me get your response on the negative impact of homosexuality compared to corruption, rape, and all these things. Go ahead. Which one impact us negatively more?
So I don't want to respond as it relates to comparing the four. I don't feel that homosexuality should be in the same class of corruption, child abuse, and child molestation. I think they're all different, and I think there may be negative and positive on all of them. But if you look at corruption, what is positive for corruption on an economy? What's positive? It's really nothing.
Right.
A child being molested or a child being raped, how does that help the society? How does that grow the economy? So we cannot continue. I understand we want to discuss this and we want to discuss what we think and which one is better or which one is worse. I don't think they're all in the same category.
No, Glendy, that was not my question. I'm not talking about being worse. I'm talking about negative impact on the country.
So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, but that is what I'm saying. Culturally, when you look at homosexuality and comparing to what President Salih said, it could be a negative impact because people have not accepted. People are not tolerant towards homosexuals. So it makes it uncomfortable for them when they go places. So that's a negative impact because they're not free to go wherever they want to go. Now, can I compare what's the positive there? I don't think there's anything positive with corruption, with molestation, or with child abuse. I think those are all negative. But when you look at homosexuality, when you think positive, maybe a homosexual side, the positive thing can be for a homosexual person could be, I have been allowed to do what I want to do. It's a matter of choice. I've decided I will be a homosexual and people have accepted me. So that could be positive. The negative thing is that no one or a lot of people, they frown on homosexuality and they don't want to accept it. So that could be negative because then they can't move around freely.
Others?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Negative impact.
Right, like I said, what negative impact is when, I don't want to go back to Steve, but even in nature, there are animals who engage in same-sex, relationship. So when he's talking about population decrease, you're looking at the population of Liberia, the percentage of the people who are gay is probably less than 10%. So that's not going to dramatically, erase or erode our population growth. So when you say things like that, trying to equate being gay to reversing population growth, in my mind, that's nonsense. You can't say that. So if somebody is coming on the platform and saying that I hate gays because I'm a religious person, most of the time they're hypocrites, because most of these guys who will come here blabbing about how they're so Christian, some of them are committing adultery, some of them are committing fornication, which the Bible frowns upon. So I don't like when people come here and use the religious part of it. I accept the cultural part because that, that's coming from tradition. That's how you've been brought up. But when you look at the Bible, I'm not saying the Bible is for homosexuals, But at the same time, when people say we come from a culture, I'm half Bassa myself, Mr. Gayman. My mother is Bassa. So when you look at even the Bible, Sodom and Gomorrah, why did the Bible even talk about homosexuals? Because it's been happening even way back then. That's why they even mention it. So it's nothing new to mankind. So when you try to make it seem like our tribe is so macho and we've never even seen that or we never even heard about it, it's not true. Look at Uganda. Look at Kenya. They're struggling with this whole thing. So it's not un-African for somebody to be gay who is an African. So the reality is, if you're not a gay man, no problem. You're not a gay woman, no problem. Live your life as a heterosexual person, but don't try to encroach on the freedoms of people who might be gay. So when people come in and spew all these things about how it's decreasing the population, it's doing this, it's doing that. When you go to a job, if a girl go to a job interview to a man who is a heterosexual male, what is the first thing he wants to do? Most of the time, he wants to sleep with her for that job. If you put that homosexual person in the same position, if you see an attractive male who's applying for that job, he might want to sleep with that male because that's who he's attracted to. Just how the heterosexual male is attracted to a beautiful girl, a homosexual male might be attracted to a handsome guy. So people you got to look at it in the same lens as put yourself in that person's shoes. So for me, culturally, I accept it. If it's not part of our culture, no problem. And I think Mr. Selly answered that question, rightfully, because I think he was talking about gay marriage or trying to decriminalize it. But the reality is, Mr. Cummings made the same statement, and I'm not going to go into that. I think what he was trying to say in that interview was that he's an ally. You hear people talking about we're allies. We want these people who are part of our society. A lot of them are, great intellects. They're great people who can produce services for our country. We want them to be free. We want them to be themselves. We ally with them. We want them to be protected. That's the position I think most of our politicians should take right now. Have them be protected. They shouldn't be, killed because they're perceived to be gay or even if they are gay. So for me, I don't want people equating sexuality with anything that nature hasn't produced itself. There are animals who are gay. Every population in this country, every tribe in Liberia have people from their tribe who are gay. So it only tells you that it's a small percentage of people, but it's something that happened naturally. So don't try to equate something that happened naturally in nature to something that is taken away from our country or from our future. Thank you again.
Thank you,
Mr. John.
Yeah, I'm coming. I understand. The topic is uncomfortable for a lot of people. I see their comments. They say, "Hey, Ja, you are equating gay and corruption." No, I'm not. I'm looking in Liberia because I cover Liberia a lot, and I see that the tolerance level when it comes to gay is less than anything else. So this is a point of discussion. So you can call it correlation or whatever you want to refer to it. It is not. We are not equating. Also, I want to note that both homosexuality and rape are criminalized under Liberian law. The penal code says, hey, you can do this. So what we are saying here is, do Liberians tolerate, because the clip we played from the beginning, this guy who is gay, an openly gay person, his life is in danger. People always try to kill him, to stone him. I talked to someone in Liberia, say, if they saw you and another, or if you had you book a hotel, you go into a hotel, and they say you and a girl entering the same hotel, people may call the crowd on you, they may do something to you. So it's something to discuss, right? But have we seen anywhere where a corrupt official who stole the money from that's supposed to build Rubberfield Highway being stoned or being talked about that way or being followed and jailed? So this is why we are discussing the topic. Let us have an open mind. And Elvis, I don't like how you use nonsense. Let us not attack one another. Let's hold a very.
I'm sorry, I take it back. Sorry to Steve, I take it back.
Let's have a very civil discussion. I know it's a touchy subject. People don't want to talk about it but from what I've seen, this is something that we have to talk about.
Yes.
I remember as a child, I have seen. We never knew they were gay. We only grew up and then understood that, oh, this is what they were doing. But we saw that. I've seen in my little village where a man go with an animal. So these things exist in Liberia. Maybe we don't know because they were not being spoken about. So let us discuss. We are adults. We are educated people. Mr. Gaiman, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you talk about bestiality there, and that is even from biblical time. It has happened. But you talk about the economic impact on society when it comes
No,
to
the negative impact, not just economic. What?
yes.
Two consenting adults having an affair. How does it affect me? How does it affect the country compared to this guy raping a 2-year-old, a baby in diaper, or someone stealing all the money that belonged to Sino County?
But let me bring you back to a few years ago. Soledad O'Brien did a documentary for HBO right there in Atlanta. They wanted to know why Black women, the Black community were dying disproportionately from AIDS in Atlanta, and they chose Atlanta to be the subject area of research. And they found out that they created this, from that documentary, they created a word called on the down low. It turned out that 2/3 of all the Black men in Atlanta that were surveyed were actually sleeping with other men and then coming home and sleeping with their wives. Hence, the transfer of the HIV/AIDS virus to the women disproportionately killing the women. So that documentary was very powerful. It had an economic and social impact that 2/3 of a particular segment of society were infected and they were dying, and they were creating an impact on our society. Same thing here. In a country that does not have the protection, the law, and the health care to have homosexuality prevalent in a very poor country, where people who are not gay but are poor, who would do anything to make a buck. This is what some of us are saying. If homosexuality, or simply when they try to push it as same-sex marriage in Liberia, which we all frown upon, and it's evident by the vote that was in both houses. We have a representative democracy where our people speak for our leaders speak for us, and the majority of our folks, I think that bill passed almost 90% of all. In fact, they said we're unanimous that everybody that represented our folks from all the counties voted.
So that now you respect the legislators.
Yeah.
I mean, it's supposed to be supported. Hey, that's what it is.
No, but Jerome, what I want you to speak to is the negative impact. I talk about corruption, right? Up to now, the Ganto-Hapo Highway is not finished because of corruption. Robert P. Highway, people say it's death trap. How does Willa and Newman sleeping together? How does it impact me compared to the stealing of the money on Robert P. Highway? That's what I want you to speak to.
I just told you. I told you. I gave an example of the health implication as far as man on man.
Unprotected sex will give you AIDS. I mean, with somebody who has a disease will give that to you. So what does it have to do with what we're talking?
I think Steve is here. Steve is somebody who is in my own line that look at the data, look at the numbers. The HIV/AIDS rate between a man and a woman is lower than HIV rate between a man and a man, and the data is clear. So when we are saying the negative impact, health impact, there are more gay men that are affected by AIDS. And if I look at the death rate, there are more gay men that die from AIDS than heterosexual men. So
what's about rape? You know, babies in diapers are being raped, and we don't see the outrage against that compared to gay or same-sex, you know, people having consensual affair. What do you say about that?
Well, when babies are raped, we all know what it is. It's a crime. It's evident. When recently in Liberia, I think it was Mr. Cummings, one of his employees sodomized a young man, and up to now,
you come and make this political.
Yeah, you come in.
Now you see, you don't want me to talk the fact.
The question is
was somebody sodomized? You see,
no.
You
We'll
see,
not
you
allow
don't.
you to go political here. We'll not
Steve,
allow you to go political.
Steve,
Thank you, Jerome.
somebody
Let me welcome.
sodomized in Liberia with that case in the paper. Yes. So you don't want to talk about it? That's fact.
Thank you, Gamer. Mr. Bole, thank you for coming back.
Let me extend my apologies to Steve. Let me extend my apologies to him.
No problem, bro.
Mr. Gamer, we're talking about outrage here. We're not talking about politics. We're not talking about which camp did what. We're talking about why are people not outraged when babies get raped, when people are killed, when people are molested. Why, when children have to go through those traumatic events, why are we not more outraged about it compared to corruption? Why people who are corrupt, why are they not being stoned? Why are we not enraged for those people? That's the question.
But you are not enraged when somebody was sodomized. You say we shouldn't talk about it.
So how do you know that? How do you know that?
It was on the front pages of every paper in Liberia. You say we shouldn't talk about it because you say more political. So you want me to be politically correct.
If you want to take it to politics and want to bring this,
there's no politics
I will also
here.
say, why is it that President Weah is not enraged for the number of people that have died, the number of unresolved deaths, the number of people that have no cause, people that keep to dead, they found another 28 years old woman dead. Why is he not enraged? Why is the government not doing anything about it?
Let's stick with the topic. We want to still get on this topic and let's discuss it. Mrs. Morbad, let's talk about the negative impact, right? I give you the example of the fellow we played from the beginning that his life is at risk. I told you about two girls. They are going to the hotel,
Yes.
They can't afford separate, so they go in one room, and people want to, kind of fight them and strip them from each other. Like, hey, you can't do this. But we are making songs for people that are corrupt. In fact, what we hear about those who are alleged war criminals, you say, oh, let's wait for their time in court. But why don't we wait for the time in court for people perceived to be gay? Your thoughts?
Who is it, Steve or
Alice? Alice, I think you are having delay with your. Maybe you can switch your device.
I don't know what's going on with this stuff. I can't hear you.
All right. Let me.
You want to repeat the question?
Yeah, my question is: we in Liberia now, if two persons are noted
let me
for
log
being
off
gay,
and come back.
right, Steve? When two people are noted of being gay, people want to attack them openly. But we don't see the same thing when we hear of corrupt officials, people that we know stole money, or even someone who we saw took part or has a war who committed atrocities. We kind of nuance it and say, well, you have to give them a chance to go to court. But how come we don't give the gay people a chance to go to court and exonerate themselves whether they're gay or not? Sometimes they don't even declare, but we perceive them. So I'm thinking, why is this so? Why are we so angry about this thing when compared to things that I believe impact us negatively more than two consenting adults having an affair?
Well, Dennis, I will circle back to your question, but I wanted to, because while I log off the show, I still followed the show, and I think Elvis made some point that I think I would like to, because when we come in the public, it's good for us to, to agree to disagree respectfully. And I respect Elvis. He's a friend, he's a brother. But I want to disagree with Elvis respectfully on some things that he said, especially in terms of, I want to look at the religious aspect when it comes to this whole homosexuality, when it comes to animals. I want to clarify that it needs to be clarified, because focus on Liberia, where I have my debut, I believe promote, educate, and inform. So let me provide some clarity and some context or some stuff. Even from a religious standpoint, in Romans chapter 1, when you start to read down from verse 18, you understand that God even talks about how animals don't even engage into these kind of things. you will see that in there. But not only that, just the notion that animals would engage into those kind of things. I have never heard or seen any animals, and I've been researching, looking for articles and so forth that would substantiate those claims that animals, same-sex marriage within animals, or engagement or whatever it is. I'm open to learning. So I mean that's something that we need to clear out. But let's move fast forward to the question that you've asked. I think it's important for us to understand that if you say to me, how does it impact? How does it this? Then I'll say the impact here, like I said earlier on, just from a humanistic standpoint. Like I said, I want a granddaughter, I want a grandson, I want my name to continue. How does that happen? So these are some of the impacts we are talking about. Like we all can relate.
But Steve, that would be my choice, right? What if even though I'm married I'm a heterosexual, heterosexual relationship, I still don't want children, right? That's my right.
Right, that's your right. But what I'm saying is, in my view now, I'm saying in my view, I would want a grandchild. So that could be an impact from a generational standpoint. It could also be an impact from an economic standpoint, because you would need to replicate, to have people, whether that to fill out the jobs, whether that to fill out the positions that will be left. Most recently, there has been this huge shortage of nurses in the United States. And based on my research, some people are blaming baby boomers. Now, I'm not equating that to homosexuality being the cause of it. No, that's not what, because they've retired, they've passed the age. But what I'm saying is, these are some of the economic impacts. These are some of the impacts that could fall down on people at some point. But again, to your question, Dennis, the issue in our country, and when I listen to Ellen, I think Ellen was put on the spot because of two reasons. One reason is Ellen's son, who is alleged, who is alleged.
Yeah, let us not call names as long people don't come up to say I'm gay, right, before it take different trend.
So there has been allegation of someone close to Ellen maybe being involved into that. But not only that, if you just look at the facial expression of Ellen, right there with the guy with the guy from England, and the word watching Ellen, you would see, and I heard Ellen made mention of that, which is true. Ellen indirectly made the same statement that Alexander Cummings made from a global standpoint. And a leader, they wouldn't automatically say, oh, I'm not going to do this, or I'm against this. They can't say that even if they are. They will always revert to what the culture says, what society says, and how the majority of the people in the country view it. So I believe if Liberians are not ready for this conversation, if Liberians are not open to this, if this is not part of what they want to believe, then we have to respect it, whether it impact or economically, religiously, or whatever it is. At this point, we have to respect the wish of the people in the majority.
Right.
Can I ask Steve a quick question? Just a quick question for Steve.
Hold on, Evans. Steve, there are articles that talk about homosexual behavior being observed among animals. So there are a lot of articles. I'm not in that area, but I've seen articles saying that. I don't know what. But another thing, before you come,
and I said I'm open to learn. I'm open to learning, because I've never heard of it. Neither have I gotten those articles. So feel free to share with me.
Sure.
To inform my knowledge, but I've never heard of it.
So and you talk about, if the majority are saying this, it should be respected. I get that. But if the majority want to stone somebody for being gay, but then the majority is not stoning someone for stealing money that belongs to everybody. If the majority is not stoning somebody who raped an old lady who cannot even fight back, what kind of majority is that? That's my question.
Then that's to the extreme now.
No,
that's to the extreme. That's to the extreme wherein you would take the law into your hands. I don't care who it is. I don't care what choices people make. No one should be hurt, harmed, killed, also for their choices. You can disagree with them. You can say, I don't support you, but for you to go to that extent to hurt and harm people, no, I don't think that's where Liberians are at this point. Liberians can reject it, Liberians can go against it, but going to the extreme where they will have to harm people, then maybe the law need to come in.
Thank you.
Can I ask my question, please? Of course,
Yeah,
this is
sure.
Steve. So, Steve, I presume you was in the United States when they passed that Gay Marriage Act.
Most definitely.
Okay, all of us in this country, how has that negatively impacted our lives?
Well, it's has some huge, whether political, social, or so forth. A lot of things has changed when it comes to the Gay Rights and the Gay Marriage Act. A lot of things have changed. Some families are complaining, for example, some heterosexual families are complaining that, okay, they don't get the same benefits as homosexuals. Some families are also complaining. I've heard complaints of where some heterosexual people who speak out against it have been retaliated on the job and so forth. So there are different ways people have been impacted.
No, because sexuality is a protected class. You know, when you're talking about employment, you can't discriminate based on a person's sexuality, their race, or their gender. So if somebody is being discriminated against because of their sexuality, it's against the law, and you should speak up against it, whether you agree with that person's lifestyle or not, because it's against the law. Right?
Most definitely. And we've conducted an investigation, held the people who were doing those, I held them accountable and brought them to books. But what I'm saying, Nanosha, I'm agreeing with you that I'm agreeing here that no one, and I'm saying it, what I agree with the lifestyle, I agree with the person's choice, no one should be targeted, hurt, or killed because they decided to say, I want to be homosexual.
So then clarify your comments about that guy who you equated him being gay to a mass murder or something like that when Kwame Opah was talking to.
Wonderful. And I spoke in context because if you read my statement, the question was this. And I specifically and strategically said in context. That means the government would have to protect pedophilia now going forward. That means you can't have mob justice. And that's what I was speaking, the context in which I spoke. Because most people want to have mob justice. They want to, when somebody steal, they want to put tire on them, beat them, and kill them in Liberia. No, it shouldn't be done. You can't do that. That's crime. So the police need to step in. I don't care who it is to protect them. And if the law says this is the law, then let the law do it as opposed to the citizens attacking people to get rid of them.
So you're saying that if the
hold on, Evans. I want to go to Alice now because she came back.
Okay.
Alice, yeah, let's talk about the same impact, negative impact. How, and my same question, I come from Southeast where the road has not, that's why I've not been there since 1985 because of corruption. So how does homosexuality impact me negatively either in Liberia or here compared to corruption that is really, causing the hardship in our country?
Okay, so I'm going to narrow my discussion to Liberia because this conversation was all about Liberia, the topic under review tonight. And so the negative impact and the reason for which homosexuality has been antagonized is because, one, people in Liberia, or culturally, like we said from the beginning, I said from the beginning, they look at procreation. That was the main thing from the onset. Even you go in the interiors of Liberia, when people are married, they expect children. And so they feel like if they allow men to be marrying men, women marrying women, they will not have the children. If you marry today, the next thing they're going to be asking you, when am I having my grandchild? So culturally, they will not want to focus on gay marriages, knowing that gay people are not going to bear any children. That is different from the United States. People can adopt children. People can do, through technology, people can have children. But our people have not reached that far, so they're trying to protect their population. And that was one of the main reasons. As far as saying why people want to stone some gay people, well, all in Liberia, people have mob justice. It's because the security is somehow weak. It doesn't really narrow to gay people. If you were to walk in the street at night and somebody gets caught rogue or thief, people will kill you. So it's not only gay people. The problem is we have a weak security, and so the citizens take law into their own hands. So it is not narrow to gay people.
Do they stone straight people?
Say that again.
Let me bring in Glendy.
Do they stone straight people for being straight or heterosexual?
What the two straight people, like I just told you, if you were walking at night, somebody
Not for
call
stealing,
you.
but for their sexuality. Not for stealing, but for their sexuality.
Well, because straight people, it is not law. It is not unlawful to be a straight person. In Liberia, it is unlawful to be a gay person. That's why they stone you. They feel you are breaking the law. That's why they try to stone you.
It's unlawful to steal. Do they stone politicians who steal?
Hold on, Evans.
Well, politicians, that is different. Yes.
And why is that? Why are we not stoning politicians who steal?
Yes.
Is it because we tolerate it?
Well, because the mentality, you know, it is a problem right now because most people in a country, they don't look at embezzlement to be like petty theft. You know, they don't look at, you know, in fact, they promote people who are corrupt than anything else. So they don't know the negative effect that comes from people being corrupt. So until they are educated to that, huh?
So is it more about education? So let's say
it's more about education. If they know that because of corruption, we cannot have the road that leads from Lofa to Monrovia is not still working. It is because of corruption. The road leading from Monrovia to the southeast has not been completed after so many years. It's because of corruption that many other things. People cannot have jobs because other people steal most of the money for their personal use. In the other counties where they digging gold and diamond, people are still poor because few people take the money. If our people get to understand it's because of corruption that all this poverty cannot go away, they will go against corruption the same way they go against the other people that break the laws.
Thank you. Glendy, corruption killed more than homosexuality, true or false, in Liberia?
What do you...
Corruption kills more than homosexuality in Liberia, true or false? It's a
I think it's true. I think it's true because corruption will lead to poverty.
Right.
I think that's absolutely true. But I want to say something here. I want to disagree that it's education. I think the way people react to people, I think it's cultural based. It's what we know, what we've grown up with. And so we continue. We have adapted that, and that is what we're doing. So take, for example, I'll just give you a short story. Growing up, when I was married before, 7 years, I had no children. I was like an outcast because I didn't have children. We're a society that is so intolerant of the least crime. Someone makes a choice, it's their choice to be a homosexual. When we get to God, he will judge them. Be tolerant. We're not tolerant. We're so good in putting people in boxes. So if they're smart enough or they're demonic enough to beat somebody up because they are homosexual, then why are they not beating the corrupt people up? Since it's gonna kill more and they're gonna increase poverty. I think for us is what people have grown up with, what we've been taught. There's nothing different that's coming to say except this one. So we live with that and we become intolerant of people, what people have chosen in society. I don't think it's education. And like I said, I think allowing politicians to be corrupt and being tolerant, we are tolerant of the politicians, we are tolerant of the rapists, we are tolerant of people who are molesting children, but we're not tolerant of a child who wants to be a homosexual. Why is it that someone can live? Why is it that someone can live in a community and be a homosexual, and you have someone who's living in a community who was a rapist, but they will probably frown on that homosexual than the rapist? Why would our society in Liberia allow that? Allow a homosexual child to be hidden, to go and hide? But someone who has raped can be working in the government free, and no one wants them. Why are we allowing that?
Thank you, Glenn. Let me announce.
Can I come in?
Yeah, hold on. Let me announce.
Dennis, can I come in quickly?
Hold on. Let me announce that we have our call number on the screen. We want our viewers to join the conversation. 605-313-6004. The code is 791403#. And call us if you call. I don't want you to call anybody gay if that person has not come up to say who they are. Please, we don't want to bash anyone or make some allegations here. And Glendy, to that point, so, and that's where the education comes in, right? Because if people are educated that this is more harmful than this one, so education does not mean, people have to go to school, but just being educated on the vices of corruption, etc., will let people understand that, hey, maybe we shouldn't be stoning people for corruption and singing songs. I mean, I've been doing this Focus on Liberia since 2017. Nobody ever made song for me, but they are making songs for rogues.
Mr. John.
Dennis?
Mr. John, real quick.
Mr. John, can I come in?
Yeah, let's Jerome come in. Jerome, 1 minute. I have callers already on the line.
Okay. Now, the reason that I like to take this from a sociological standpoint is there's something in sociology that we call social mores. Social mores are rules or law within our society that maybe 100% of the folks get together and say, this is something that we will not accept. This should not happen here. This should not happen. And if that is an established fact, and we all accept it, anything beyond that would be considered deviancy. And we know that. So if, let's say, 5% of Liberian society was gay, and 95% of the people say that it is wrong, you cannot force 5% of the folks, cannot force 95% of our society to accept who they are, and we should abandon our feelings and our right and our social mores that make who we are. It is part of our DNA, our society, our culture. Borders or mores, people get together and say these are the rules and the laws that will govern us. So, yes,
Mr. Gaiman, I was born in the village, right? Where you talk about the social mores, stealing. For instance, if you are in my village, you steal.
They will beat you
around,
up.
right, around, if you are even 12 years, they will charge you 4 cup of rice and 1 chicken and they will beat you.
That's correct.
I'm not talking about even going to commit adultery.
That's correct.
Okay, so all these things have been, so how come now in the city we are tolerating stealing? And I don't know which social moral will tolerate
stealing.
a 5-year-old baby being raped by a 20-year-old.
Well, our social mores in the city, we have done it in the form of legislation. We got law against those things, and they have been observed.
There's laws against corruption, laws against rape.
Oh yes, that's what we are saying. When you say corruption, it's on a broader scale, because corruption is mostly perceptional. Because I could look at you and say you are corrupt. I can look at you and say everybody in Liberia, we use the word so loosely that.
But what about homosexuality? Is it whoever homosexuality? Let's say you see 2 people in a room, man and man in a room. Perception, right? Because how do you even prove this in court?
Well,
DNA sample. But please hold that thought. Let me bring in our first caller. Hold your thought. Let me bring in our first caller. And our first caller here is Hassan. Hassan, go ahead. You are live.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dennis, and thanks to the panelists. And thank God we got the likes of people like Elvis Morris on this show. But with that being said, it's easy in Liberia for somebody to be corrupt, for somebody in the society to be corrupt, to be a rapist, right? To do all of those things and to be gay. So the chances of somebody being corrupt, growing up in Liberia, growing up being corrupt, is high versus them being gay. That's why it's so tolerable for politicians and everybody else in the society to get away with things that actually affect their everyday lives versus something that has nothing to do with it, versus something that is not being forced, like Mr. Gaiman saying, oh, it's being forced on the society. And it's not by coincidence we're having this you guys are having this discussion in America. Because if you look on the flip side in America, gayness is legal. They can get married, right? And the country is successful, but corruption in this country is illegal. People get punished, right? Judges, politicians, whosoever, people that evade taxes or whatever. If you get investigated and can go to court, you will face justice. So it's funny how it's working in the United States, but for us, we are doing the opposite, and it's not working for us. So, like I said, thanks for the show. It's a very good show, and thanks to Elvis again for his input. And keep holding your guy, Elvis. I'm enjoying the show, and thanks to panelists.
Thank you. Let me go to our second caller here, and then you will come in. Second caller, your name and where you calling from? 215 area code.
Hi, my name is Coretta. How you guys doing today? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks for calling, Coretta. Your thoughts?
It is so sad. I'm sitting here watching this show today. It is so sad that we live in an advanced country, and we have Mr. Gilman is talking about gay rights. We're in a society that we as human against discrimination, and we on this show talking about what someone is doing in the bedroom. But in Liberia we have children being raped, and nothing is said about it. So I mean, he lives in a state that if he feels so strongly against gay, he needs to protest and see the outcome of you going against gay rights. It is so wrong. We need to talk about children being raped. People don't have food to eat. But I think what someone is doing in his or her bedroom shouldn't be a discussion for someone that's living in an advanced country. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let me bring in the panelists. Let's start with Elvis. Your response.
Yes, and again, I want to extend my apologies to Steve. I think I should have, worded that, better instead of saying his nonsense. But again, like I said, I know our culture. I know what our people consider to be acceptable and taboo. But the reality is, for those of us, most of us here, all of us, grew up in the United States. This country is by far the best country on the planet, right? And my life has never been negatively impacted by a person being gay around me. I'm a Christian. I'm a heterosexual male. I love my wife. I love everything about a woman, right? But in that same token, being a liberal, being a Democrat, I want everybody to be free. As long as you're not, committing a crime, being who you are, let that person be themselves. So I always want to advocate on the side of people people being allowed to be who they are. And to my big brother Steve, I would say, don't equate sexuality to abstract ideologies or abstract causal effects, because the reality is you are born who you are. I'm a crime man. There was a time in Liberia where the crime people was being hunted. If you're a Gil person, my wife is half Gil. There was a time where the Gil people was being hunted. She didn't choose to be Gil. I didn't choose to be crime. But the reality is, some people who are born gay, or some people who are confused about their sexuality, it's not their fault. Some people who are Christian will say, "Oh, it's the devil that's talking. It's this, is that." But let's be accepting, like Ms. Glendy said. Let's be accepting of everybody, whether you're in the village in Liberia or you're in the city in Monrovia. We are human beings. The percentage of people who are gay on this planet is very small. So it's not going to affect the population growth of a country like Liberia, even the world population. It's not. So we're all different. Some people are different sexually. We have to accept them. That's all I want to say. I think the callers said what they had to say, and I want to respectfully disagree with some of Steve's points that he made, and I agree with Ms. Glendy, and I disagree with Mr. Gilman. And I can understand where Ms. Marba is coming from, because she's like, she reminds me of my mother, because like I said, when I started the show, my mom used to say the same thing. And I know a very, very, very powerful man in Liberia growing up in Congo Town. I won't call his name, but his son was gay, and at the time I couldn't fathom it, because he was a handsome guy. He had a lot of girls chasing after him. Eventually, I think he died of AIDS, but again, he was somebody who had all the power, all the the money, and the ladies loved him, but he was gay, and eventually he died of, I think, AIDS or some sexually related disease. But again, he was being talked about in the community. But I was close to him. He was close to the girl that was living next door to us. He was quote unquote loving to her, but in reality, he was actually a gay guy. So I just want to say that, I just want to.
Thank you. And Steve, before you come in, let me bring in 2 comments here. This one, you Montreal Kranga say the host decided to discuss homosexuality. So much going on in our country, and the host just choose. And then it's important that the same person had another comment. Say, and it is okay for big shot men to rape our young men. Let's discuss that. So that's the whole point, right? Sunday, Washington say we tolerate corruption because it is part of our culture in Liberia. Let's talk about culture. Go ahead, Steve, your response to the, let me put one more comment that I saw here. Okay. Ciara Thompson says, it's funny because Liberians claim to be so anti-gay. Most Liberians will give a limb to bring their children here to the United States, where we live and work among gays with no problems. Go ahead, Steve, your response to the comments and the callers.
Well, I think, first of all, I'd like to appreciate the callers and those who are commenting. It makes the show interactive and engaging. So thanks to them for the inputs. The issue of homosexuality, gay rights, and so forth, like I said from the get-go, that every behavior you can trace it back to culture, society, religion, and other factors. In our country, in Liberia, that's not something we accept. We have to be respectful of that. On this side, that's something that is acceptable. The law has been passed. Whether you like it or not, you would live with it, you would have to accept it. Now, the extreme of people going to want to hurt people in Liberia or take away their life or take the law into their hands, for corruption, for, homosexuality or other things, I don't support that. I think it's bad. I don't think anyone should take the law in their hands. I think we should allow the law to take its course. But here is something I wanted to point out that we maybe are not paying attention to some extent. The issue of corruption and people thinking that maybe Liberians don't frown or whatever it is. I have a different take on it because these same corrupt officials, some of these pedophilias, they are in authority. They have the money. So what they do is they have the security on their side. They use the same resources that they've taken from the people to protect themselves against the people. So it is to some extent difficult for Liberians to actually stand up against them. But not only that, imagine someone rapes a person's daughter, goes and call the town chief, call the pastor, call the people in the community for them to judge it in the Parliament hall. And they leave the law out of it. They go behind closed door. Some of these families, they're so poor, they settle it, they give them money. They say, let's just forget it. So, like I said again, we as a nation must tailor our effort to addressing these issues, such as, like I said, let's go to not enabling some of these behaviors. Let's punish some of these behaviors. And let's reward good behaviors because they tend to make a difference. And I'd use my time.
Thank you. Let me put 2 comments and then I'll ask a question here. Eva Magbar says, what is the comparison between corruption, rape, and homosexuality? Roland Gideon say, Liberia having too many people that killed during the war, and the serious problem in Liberia today is drugs and guns. Caroline say, Mr. Gilman, there are laws against the ills that are happening in the country, but it is not being followed. So what are you talking about? Junior said, at the end of the day, you are wasting your time. The Liberian people and government would not allow such thing in our country. Homosexuality is not allowed, also not allowed forever.
Whether you allow it or not, you're happening.
And the question here is not about allowing or not allowing. I'm talking about how we approach it. And even you may not go to the extreme of shooting or stoning someone who is a homosexual, but how do we react? My question is, do you think Liberians can vote as representative or senator an openly gay person compared to someone who is corrupt that we know, who stole money and was accused, found guilty by, let's say, LACC or someone and even prosecuted, or even if there's a rumor? Do you think Liberians can vote that way? Glendy, what do you think? I mean, we know people who stole money. We knew that, or it was rumored, even though they were not taken to court and found guilty. But we all knew where they took money from. They started building houses and other things. When they ran to be senator or representative, hands down they won. But do you think if we have someone who we know is openly gay, people can vote for that person?
I think I mean that's a hypothetical question, and it's kind of difficult to answer. I think based on the Liberian society, because we're restricting our conversation to Liberia, I think it would be difficult to have Liberia vote somebody who they know is openly gay, only because they're being prejudicial and also they have their personal biases. I think that's what they'll do. So to the caller, whether we like it or not, whether we accept it or not, we have gay people that's in Liberia. So those people who will celebrate gay people in private will not want to come publicly because of their alliances to come and say, I support this person. That's what they were doing. So it would be I can't find the word that I want to describe them. They would be hypocrites.
But Glenn, will you vote for an openly gay person if they were opposed with a corrupt person?
100%, because I'm looking at the capability of the individual and not the sexual preference. 100%.
And what will you do, Jerome? Openly gay and somebody who is openly corrupt or a mass murderer?
I have to be consistent with my beliefs. I will vote against openly gay person and take my chances with a corrupt individual that can be persecuted and hopefully change, rehabilitated.
What's about a pedophile?
Well, we have all culture. The gay people, straight people.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I'm using American word now. You have a registered sex offender.
That's correct.
Compared to openly gay person, who will you vote for?
We have all agreed across the board, gay, straight, everybody, that pedophilia is a crime, morally, legally wrong. So we know that. But if it came to openly gay person, me, under no circumstances would I vote for openly gay person to hold office.
But you will vote for a corrupt person that's going to continue to.
No, he will vote for a pedophile over a homosexual.
You will vote for a pedophile.
You will vote for a pedophile, Mr. Gaiman?
That was not.
You really want to say that publicly?
Don't put words in my mouth.
No, okay,
that was not the question. The question was, will you vote for a person? I saw a just opposed that with a corrupt person, and I said I would take my chances with a corrupt person that can be rehabilitated. Yes.
So the second question that Dennis asked, he asked a second question: would you vote for a pedophile or a gay or openly gay person? What is your response to that? Because I'm pretty sure you're not coming on this show and telling us that you're going to support a pedophile. That is so sad.
Listen, that's a false choice. But even if we're given that choice, I would rather not vote in that election.
Let's go to our phone lines. We have a lot of people on the lines. Let's get through the phone lines and then we can close. My first caller here is Mr. Camon, GS Camon. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Dennis. Again, thanks to the panel. This is a very interesting topic in our country. As you know that, Steve just touched on it. Most of the time, the reason why people accept corruption, because the corrupt official, when they steal the money, they give you a little bit, and then you vote for them or you're happy with them.
Because you say you're corrupt.
Yeah, so for the homosexual thing you're talking about, like I'll get you a little story when I was a child. My father there's a guy who used to mess around, but I didn't know where it was from. I just used to hear the people say you can follow small children, you can follow small children. So one time he was passing in front of our house, and then my mother, my aunt, and my sister that were talking about it. So that boy passing there, he passed, so you can follow children or small boys. So my father was lying in the house, he lifted his head and said, who the boy? And they say that boy going there. So I didn't know why it was. Then my father called the boy. He said, come here. And he came and said, don't pass in front of my house again. And I don't want to see you around my children because that behavior is not good. But I didn't know why it was until one of my big brothers told me you can follow small boys, but stay up to the time. I didn't understand it. So it's like the culture, the family will tell you they don't like it, they're against it. So we grew up with that. You know, I came to America here.
There are plenty of things we grew up with. You know, I used to even have jika in my feet. I grew up, so I would say, yeah. So I get when people say we grow up with this thing.
If somebody is corrupt, they hide more than if somebody is a gay. I would say that.
Okay.
If somebody is corrupt, because it creates a lot of harm to the society.
Thank you.
The guy who raped the baby, they are bad also. They are not good. But our people will go and settle because the poverty rate in the country, people settle for anything.
Right. Not just that, because there's no justice. If that person goes to court, they don't win.
Okay, yeah.
If the people were winning, they will go to court, but they don't win. The case lasts forever.
Yeah, then the powerful guys got the money.
Yeah.
They got everything. So the police or the law, everything in their pocket. And in fact, they run the country. They rule the people. Take for example, like all the warlords you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Kemo. We got more callers here. Let me go through quickly.
So thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Let get Ami Komora, is that the name? 267 Iroko. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to chime in a little bit on this topic.
Sure.
The whole thing about gay people always like to compare the Western world with Africa. And I think it's a little unfair to do that.
Okay.
Because this is a topic, this is something that has to be, our people are not open to something like that. As time goes on, I'm pretty sure it was something, but you can't just bring something and just say, oh, because it's all in the Western world, so why can't African people accept it? No, that is unfair. I'm in the United States. I'm not into gay, whatever, but they don't have any problem. I don't have any problem with it as long as you don't bring it around me. My only problem is if you're trying to turn my religious beliefs and shove it down my throat that I had to, oh no, because if I say no, I can't accept a gay person, like the person sitting there with her about churches and stuff, and you say, oh, you must, and I would take it, no, that's not right. They can be there, everybody can have their rights.
Right.
I don't agree with people stoning people, doing this and doing that. I would never hurt a fly.
Right.
But if I see somebody hurting a baby, ripping a baby, I would put on that thick skin to hurt you.
Right. And that's the point, right? That's the point, right?
In Africa, if I saw somebody or if I know somebody that rip a 2-year-old or a baby, I will tell you myself. Let me go to jail, whether it be mine or somebody else's.
Right.
Okay? The thing with the stealing and thing there with politicians and stuff, maybe some people want to do it, but they don't have the authority to do it. These people have powers. These people are innocent poor people. They don't even have rights. Courts don't even give them any rights. They don't even have them. They compare that, oh, why don't they stone these people? And why don't they? The question should be, why don't they stone these child molester and rapists and stuff them? But to compare them, say, oh, because politicians steal, which is a bad thing, but you can't say, oh, these people have any power to do that. Unless these people are left alone and they in the numbers to do that. Even people, a lot of people around wants to do that, want to do stuff that I still need to do, but they don't have that courage because they don't have that power to do it.
So you're saying you're saying if they had the power, they would be equally angry with corrupt officials the same way they are angry with homosexuals.
Yes, they will be.
All right.
And homosexual, as time goes on, and I'm pretty sure it would be acceptable. It's not just something that's not part of our culture, and not something that you can just bring because you live in the Western world. You accept it. So why can't African people accept it? That is unfair to say. If you were still in Africa, still there, never had the opportunity to come here to learn to live with them because you had no choice. You come to my country to look for greener pastures, so you have no choice to discriminate or to do anything because it's the law against the law. You would have been the same way. So I just can't stand people because they hear, they act like other people that are over there, they any less something. I dare you if you were there, you would have the same mentality that they got too. It takes time. It's not something that they used to. It's not their culture. You can't just bring it one day and just dump it one day and say, oh yeah, accept it. We accept it in the worst thing. Why can't you? Why can't you? No. If I had a vote in Africa to say, homosexual and a corrupt person, as long as homosexual does not trump my right, my religion, believe my religion's right, I don't have problem with voting for you. But if you have to shove it down my throat and say, oh, it has to be my church, my this, my that, then we have a problem.
But I mean, stealing is not our culture too. You agree?
No, yeah, I do agree. That's what I said.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling. Let me go to the next caller here. 972 area code. Your name and where you calling from?
Thank you.
Caller, please turn your device off and then talk to the phone. Talk to us.
This is Thompson.
Again, say your name again.
Is my name Thompson?
Go ahead, sir.
Thompson. So all of the things you guys are saying, especially my comment is about the homosexualism. Homosexualism is not recognized in Liberia according to our constitution.
No, it's not.
So,
that's not in the Constitution doesn't mention anything about it. I think it's the penal code. It's our penal code. That's where they criminalize it. Go ahead.
So I'm trying to say that.
Are they echo?
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is that as far as rape, sexual rape, child abuse, all of these they have law, but the government does not enforce the law. Okay, but if the people who are sympathy with the homosexuality and they are saying that homosexuality should be recognized, if you recognize homosexuality, it will spread, and you have a serious problem. I'm a countryman. I'm from a village, even though I'm in America. But homosexuality is not good for anybody, for that matter. If you recognize it, it will be a problem. Our major problem is that the government does not implement the law that is on the book. I remember clearly there was a grand leader representative who sexually molested a person or so. They had that person. They never enforce the law. So people that are corrupt, those are the same people who will be in the position to do this thing because they will never let the law on the book to be implemented.
Thank you.
The problem we have is the leadership problem. There is no law in Liberia that recognizes homosexuality. You can leave it like that. I'm not trying to say that homosexualism, people are not in Liberia that do homosexuality, but we cannot recognize it like the gentleman that Elvie was saying. He's in sympathy with them. You can't be in sympathy with that. You make it to spread even more.
Thank you.
To recognize it, so many people will get into it. It will be a problem for us.
Thank you. And why is why is corruption spreading? Is it because we recognize it or we don't recognize it? Corruption. All right. Let me go to the next caller here. The last caller for the night is
corruption is spreading simply because we do not. We say something out of our mouth, they do not implement it.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Dosick Paul. Mr. Paul, you're live. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Dennis. This is George Paul from Minnesota. So let us just imagine for a second. Tomorrow, we wake up in the morning, all of a sudden, in Liberia, gay people are the majority. We have a gay president, and they say, and what God said, no straight relationship. Man and woman cannot be together. Let us just imagine that for a second. Gay people are in the majority. Gay people say, "Our God say He against man and woman being together." That's the very first thing. So the whole thing about my religion, my God, it's just because you're in the majority. It doesn't mean you're right. That's the first thing. The next thing, Steve talked about. The people in America accept it, but people in Africa don't accept it. People in America, once upon a time was against it. People still are against it in America. But the difference is, when people in America, they keep advancing and realize that being gay is not by choice, but it's biological. Okay? So you can't punish somebody for something that they did not choose. That's the difference. So the society is advancing while our society is regressing. Based on religion. It's still religion, the point of gay first. Let me just finish real quick, Dennis, I'm begging you.
Okay.
Right? So, and the thing, you gotta understand that the male and female, our sexuality is very fluid. And we're not separated by one chromosome. You know what I mean? And that's why it's easy to transform a man to a woman to a man. So, we have to advance ourselves, we have to advance our knowledge and take this, whole religion. Religion is based on belief, and there's no factual evidence, on religion. So we can be making our decisions based on some kind of a belief system. We have to look at the physical world and look at how things are progressing and try to make an informed decision from there. But to be, basic things on my religion say, my God say, why get one? I'm a majority tomorrow and say, our God say, you can't do this. So thank you for the time, man.
Thank you a lot. Let me allow two more callers. There are two callers. You have just 1 minute each. The first is Charles Cole. Go ahead, Charles.
Yes. Good evening. Let's deviate a little bit, okay, from the topic. How do we accept gay in Liberia and then polygamy in America? Can you reconcile those two?
I don't know. I don't know about accept and not accept. The question is which one we hate more, whether you accept it or not, even though you don't agree with it. But if somebody is doing it, why you hate that person more than the person who is corrupt or who is a child abuser?
Yes, but my question is that can we accept polygamy in America and then accept gay in Liberia?
So go ahead, make your point.
Okay, no, that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me, Tavina Cole, you are live.
Good evening. Can you hear me, Dennis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very interesting discussion. First, I think I heard one of your panelists. Do you hear me? One of your panelists mentioned, kind of wrapping all of this in the same bucket. You seem as though you're trying to equate all of them on the same level. I kind of agree with that, because we're talking about corruption, rape, and other forms of violence, and then you single out me as a gay person. I'm just using that as an example. So it makes it look like I'm being a gay person. I'm on the same level as the other criminals. And that's, it's right to say that. And I think that was not a good selection of doing that, because it's like because I chose to be a gay, so you're thinking of my sexual preference and making it look like it's criminal for me to be a gay. And I think if we wanted to talk about the issue of the gay, then we should have talked for the context when we talk about gay, we talk about lesbianism, we talk about same-sex marriage, we talk about fornication and adultery. They have a different topic on there, but I don't think we should have, it just didn't look right. And if I was a gay, I would be offended by that. It might even be a gay, but I think it wasn't done properly. But to the point of the issue of the gay discussion, which took most of the show, I know culturally we have some problems with that, but we have to evolve. We have to evolve I know it takes time, it takes education. We have to evolve. The world is changing. The culture cannot define my sexual preference. You don't have to like me. You don't like to like what I do. You have to accept it because it's my choice. And I'm a Christian, yes, but that's what it is. You can't force me for that. So thank you for the show and have a good night.
Thank you. So Tavina, you heard somebody on the show say the rather corruption than homosexuality. So you should see where the topic is coming from. So it is not out of the blue. Yeah, right? So
Mr. Gilman is obviously he was blinded with facts.
No, I mean, so but we have many of
he's politically blind.
No, but we have many of these people.
How can you take a criminal or somebody who's defrauding the country over somebody who is well educated,
right,
who is skilled, who can perform the task over a criminal, pretty much.
Right. So no. All I'm saying is
how is that even equal?
Right, but that's my point, right? You're making my point. That's the reason why we are discussing it, because we have more of Mr. Gilman in Liberia today. Let me go to the next caller here, the last caller, Prince Williams. Go ahead, Prince. All right, thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, Prince, 1 minute, please. We are out of time.
You can save me for the live, and you can give me one American mini. You can't even give me one Liberian mini.
Because you called last.
Let me say this in hopefully in 1 minute, and I will shock you all that is on here, and perhaps we can continue discussion another time. Let me say this to you. I heard people talking, oh, it's not part of our culture. It's not part of our culture. Let me shock you. Homosexuality is a deviant behavior that is in all human race, all culture, all society, all people. The very village you're in today, there are men in that village that sleep with other men. There are women in that village that go to the riverside and sleep with other women secretly. It is only a taboo. It is only frowned upon. It is only a secrecy. They have been shrouded in mystery and secrecy. This homosexuality we were all talking about here. And God destroyed the whole earth. Only 4 persons were alive, or perhaps 6. Lot and his children.
No, Noah.
Where is the feeling of the homosexuality came from? Because it is an innate nature in our. It is in us as a species, as a human being. It's a deviant nature in us, and it's prevalent in every society. The village you're talking about, even the society, the Islamic society, the broad society, and the minute you want to hang me and kill me for that. The things that go in that bush you do with it, that you I don't know that considered as a secret. You don't know what part of the things you do. So when we discuss about homosexuality and these sexual deviance, don't discuss it as a nature in human being that we tend to become culture or religion. We tend to frown upon it. We tend to ostracize it. But it is a deviant nature that is in everybody.
And Prince, where are you getting that from when you say it's a deviant nature? What's your study?
I do. My study is back from the religious, historical,
right,
and also.
It's religious, right? So people may have. So it is not backed by any scientific study, right?
Well, it is backed by scientific study. In the human nature, the deviant nature of what you think a man would crave for another man, if it's not scientifically or biologically or something.
No, you call it deviant. You call it deviant. That's what I'm saying. You call it deviant because.
Yeah, it's deviant because of the cultural connotation to that and the acceptable norms or so.
Yeah, because anyway.
My point I'm trying to make here, this behavior, what we're saying that is not part of our culture, it is part of our culture. It's just it's a secret at all. People in the bush, in the villages, they sleep with all the men, they sleep with all the women in the villages too, and it's a secret that nobody knows about, and they just make it ostracize it. And I'm not trying in any way to approve the gay approval to that behavior. I'm against it because of my religious belief. I find against it, but I say it's an inherent nature in every human being. Or if it's not the case, then why did God destroy the whole entire earth? What homosexuality came from again? And we still carrying on today.
Thank you. Thank you. That was the last caller. So let me, Steve, you're the psychologist here. So respond to this deviant thing.
Well, the issue of terminate as deviant, it's from a professional standpoint, we don't see it that way. However, I would say in the early 70s, going on to the 80s. Before then, homosexuality in the DSM-5, which were back then not the DSM-5, which is what we use to diagnose patients, it was considered, a mental retardation. So people who were homosexuals,
right,
we consider them, when we are diagnosing them, we would consider them as, mentally retarded.
right.
That was the diagnosis for it at that time. However, from a strategic standpoint, I don't know how it happened. I'm not sure if it's influenced by politics, culture, or like Tavi said, other people said, the word's evolving. Right around the early 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, guess what? They removed that diagnosis from in the DSM-5. Another thing I've also noticed too, while we are
And you
talking,
said we don't know why?
And that's what I'm getting to. While we are talking in the same context, another thing while we're talking in the same context, most recently, they've removed the diagnosis of pedophilia from the DSM-5. They remove it. So from the APA, which is the American Psychological Association, once you see these kind of things removing, that means culturally they are seeing this now as a norm. So that means you can no longer, even going forward now, you can't even tell somebody that they're mentally retarded. It becomes a problem. They can sue you for it. So what I'm saying in a nutshell, based on what the last caller said, is these things cannot be pinpointed to say, oh, it's a deviant behavior or so forth or whatever it is. But people have the right to their choice of work. But I would say from a professional standpoint, again, people have the right to decide the choices, what they want to do. Most of these things we can argue back and forth because they cannot be substantiated. I have my personal views on how homosexuality originated, whether it's from a religious standpoint or political or social standpoint. I think again, like I said, and like most of the callers have said, the fact that we haven't gravitated towards that part of life, or our society have not accepted it, I think it should be respected as well.
And professionally, it is no longer a deviant behavior.
Most definitely so. Most definitely so. It's no longer, because it's considered norm now. It's no longer a deviant behavior. I agree.
And maybe that's based on study, right? And not just culture or because things are evolving. Jason Carsey, is masturbation also a deviant behavior?
Sure.
We were talking.
Wow. We'll go a little deeper now. I'll let Elvin know into that one.
Yeah, something being deviant just means it deviates from the norm. So if it's something that almost everybody does, it's not deviant anymore, right?
Yes.
Let's go on to
short and simple.
Let's go on to conclude. We have hit the 2 hours mark.
So you can't no more diagnose somebody who's homosexual as having some kind of mental issue. It used to be a mental disorder before, but you can no longer do that. You can't. No, you're being wrong.
Thank you.
So I guess, like you said, it's an acceptable norm now in our society.
Thank you so much for.
But again, from some religious standpoint, some people still see it from a religious standpoint as
religion, because and that's why I don't want to go to the religion. I myself am a Christian, but when we start going to that religious route,
is Dennis coming back?
Yeah. Do you hear me?
I think he's frozen. Are you frozen, Steve?
No, I'm not. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
No, I'm not.
Can you hear me?
Give me. I don't know. You want to host it? I think you can.
Mr. Goodman, are you there?
Yes, I mean, they have not asked me to speak, so I'm quiet.
Mr. Goodman,
don't hear from you too now, because
Mr. Goodman, let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up. Thank you all so much for coming to participate in this very touchy, discussion. It's a very touchy subject, and I'm not stopping here. The next time we talk, we're going to be talking about female circumcision. Yeah, we will talk. I mean, if we can talk it, who else will talk it? FOL is the home of the debate. So let's talk it. Yeah, we'll talk about it. So let's conclude tonight. Thank you very much. We want to thank our viewers and all the people that participated.
Since we're waiting for him, I think...
But Dennis was already on. You're not seeing him, but he's on.
Steve, you want to go in and out or out and in?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yes. So let's conclude tonight. Let's get your closing comment. Mr. Gayman, I want to start with you, and I'm holding my chest. I don't know what else gonna
be popping out.
Yeah, you see, my undergraduate and graduate degrees in sociology and social research. So this is right within my alley. Now, one of the things I want, people talk about pedophilia. There's a reason in the West where when we do law, when they do crime, they rate them. They got degrees, first degree, second degree, third degree. There is a reason for that. In society, we have to agree that certain crime or certain act are graver than others. Now, in my culture and my upbringing, I believe, and I know this for the fact that in sociology, there's something called social mores. People get together and say, these are the things that would be accepted in our society, and they rate them on different levels. For instance, in Liberia, pedophilia was legal. In fact, President Talbot, have actually put together a bill on the floor that consent for girls would be 13 years old. 13, that's babies. It was an accepted norm in Liberia. In fact, they have this official code that they introduced something called godfather, godpa. Godpa were grown men that molested children. And we accepted that. We had a tolerance for that. So when we're talking about degrees of deviancy, in my upbringing, my culture, and my conservatism, I say to you that when our norms say, like we say in Liberia now, that the majority of Liberia agrees that homosexuality, if you were putting it up in a penal code, it would be first degree. It would be at the highest, and then everything else. So when we are talking about these things, we should talk about them in cultural context. And I am very absolute and resolute in my upbringing and my belief system. I have not evolved. Nothing will make me to be evolved in accepting that my cultural upbringing and my religious belief as what we consider deviance will be accepted because now everybody else accepting. That is not my upbringing, and that will never be my upbringing. Pedophilia is wrong. We know this, but in our society, in Liberia, anybody, any woman that was born before 1990 has experienced the GOPA phenomenon. And now poverty has exacerbated this. But yes, Liberia at one point has accepted that pedophilia was acceptable in our society. And nobody can deny that.
Mr. Gayman. Hold on, G talk. Mr. Gayman, where I was born to force the women into marriage, they call it elope. You'll be playing a 14-year-old child will be playing. They just come and grab you and take you to marriage. That was acceptable.
That's correct.
Are you saying too that's part of our culture so we can still do it?
No, this is what I'm saying. There are certain things that we agree, and there are times that we evolve, and there are certain things that we just cannot. Like I say, I tell folks, there are certain things that we come from the West when we go back home. There are certain things within our culture that we have to change, and there are certain things that we just can't change. Like my cultural belief, as it relates to this particular homosexuality, is something that I will never evolve to, that I will never accept, because that's part of my moral that I cannot let go.
And Abby said, why this man Allah is the only one that went to school? Gilman, you take it.
I know, right?
I tell you where I stand. I have a stand, and I stand by it. I'm not moving. I don't blame you for being gay. I'm not telling you to change for being accepted for gay. I am absolutely against it, and that's my belief, and I stand by it.
Let me go to Mrs. Mobile. Your closing comments.
Well, Dennis, like I said from the beginning, people in Liberia, they decide to not accommodate the idea of being a gay. It's because it stands for their cultural beliefs. Secondly, it is something that has been passed into law. If something is passed into law and somebody did that, of course, you'll be breaking the law. As far as corruption is concerned, it's not something that, has been passed into law as has been done with the gay law. So people usually they want to enforce the law their own way, which is not good. I don't support mob justice, but that's the reality. And I also explained from the beginning that
corruption, being stealing, bribery, all these things, they are illegal.
yeah, they are illegal, but they are not enforced like the way gay issue is being taken because our people have not been educated to that. You have to educate the people, even in the United States.
How do you enforce, when two consenting adults, have sex? How do you?
Well, it's not, when we talk about gay, it doesn't always mean two consenting adults. Somebody like the boy, the video we look at tonight, the boy is not married. He doesn't have an adult boyfriend or girlfriend. What if he's behind other kids' age? That means he's gonna be teaching them what he's doing. And so you have to let people grow up and make their own decisions, what they want to do. So we have to, for me as a person, I'm not against gay people. I work with them. Some of them have been my good friends. But in Liberia, we have to give them chance to accommodate things that they don't understand. And like I said before, we have to educate the people to accept what we think is okay for them. And people have their individual beliefs. If they don't want to, like Mr. Gimman, we respect that as well. As long as you don't hit somebody or you don't hurt somebody, that's fine with you. It's your biblical beliefs. Live by that. So everybody can live the way they want to live.
Thank you. One comment here from Connor said, just because it is cultural belief doesn't make it right. Slavery was once acceptable. Let me throw in some.
What?
Let me throw in
That's
some.
the point, but we have to educate our people.
Right. Currently,
we can't just outright and say they are wrong.
Focus on Liberia is carrying on a small fundraiser. We want to raise $10,000 to expand operations in Liberia. Please donate $10, $5, $20, $100, $1,000. It's not going to hurt. We really, really appreciate it. Tomorrow, January 7th, is what we used to call Pioneers Day in Liberia. January 7, 1822, we have our brothers and sisters arriving at Providence Island. By that time, it was called Perseverance Island. So we started celebrating that day 100 years later as Pioneers Day. The true story of Pioneers Day is coming to you live tomorrow at 7 p.m. on the Liberia History Channel. Our presenter, Carl Famule, will be here, and I will be hosting the true story of Pioneers Day tomorrow at 7 on the History Channel. Also, tomorrow morning, Lady Piso or Anita Wanti just released her new song called Crossing Over. Lady Piso is the girl who was once on drugs and living in the ghettos, the one in Liberia we call Zogos. She's out of that. She's a minister of the gospel, and she's also a gospel artist. She will be right here tomorrow at 11 with her new single, Crossing Over. You don't want to miss it. And also give updates on her ministry to win back the Zogos. All here focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. I'm so proud of Focus on Liberia. We don't just talk politics, we talk everything Liberia. Elvis, your closing comments.
Thank you, Mr. John. And I just kind of want to go back to one of the callers who said that, if we delegalize or if we legalize homosexuality, it's going to spread. He's already casting expressions on Liberian men and women that they're secretly homosexuals and they're just waiting for it to be decriminalized so that everybody can join into it. But that's not what it is. You are either straight, you either like women or you like men. It's just that simple. Not because it's criminalized, meaning most people are going to join it or not. For example, I want to give to Madam Malba. In South Africa, for example, there's a famous comedian called Trevor Noah. He had a stand-up called Born a Crime, meaning his procreation that his mother and father came together to have him was illegal at the time because a white man couldn't sleep with a black woman at that time, and he was born a crime, quote unquote. So the reality is, if you're talking about people in Liberia, breaking the law, and you're looking at it, you're trying to use legalities to defend, against it. There's no standing. Laws can be repealed. The reality is, like one of the callers said it, there are homosexuals everywhere. And Mr. Gayman, I know you're a Bassa man. Myself too, I grew up in a Bassa household. My mother is Bassa. Most of us men, we look at people who are gay and we try to equate it to ourselves as being effeminate. You know, being gay is looked at as being effeminate, not strong, not tough, not macho. But the reality is, if you have a child who is gay, for some men, that's their biggest fear. Please, God, let my son not be gay because it's going to be an embarrassment to me. But sexuality, for me, I was sexually active at like 13 years old. So if you have a young child who is 13, like Ms. Marble was saying, you got to let them grow up before they can make that decision. You know if you like boys or girls by the age of 12 or 13 or 14 or 15. So if a child who is 13 years old or 15 years old is, you know, expressing themselves as a homosexual, what are you going to say? Oh, it's just from small time, like just small time behavior, he'll grow out of it. The thing here is, like Steve is a psychologist.
Go ahead, please conclude.
Yeah, like Steve is a psychologist. Maybe we can have the scientists and the psychologists study this more. But the reality is, in our country, we should have no law, you know, being forced against people just based on gender, tribe, or sexuality. These are things you're born with for the most part, and you have no choice over it. So I would say we can try to decriminalize that law and allow gay people to be who they are freely and willingly, as long as they're not committing any crimes. Thank you so much for inviting me on tonight. I appreciate it, Mr. Ja. And again, sorry to Steve. I didn't mean to say nonsense. Sorry to Steve again.
Steve?
Well, I think it's a good discussion. In as much that we try to stay away from politics, but I enjoy Mr.
Mr. Try his luck.
I enjoy Mr. Gamer, who always try to haul down that road. You can't help it. And I remember when Dennis sent me the invite. I told you, I said, I'm trying my best to not do politics this year. He said, no, not politics, social. But I think we need to have more of these kind of conversations to inform, educate, you know, and enlighten our people. It's critically important because whether we like it or not, majority of the questions that we ask here, these are things that we are faced with, we would be faced with as a nation, whether we like it or not. These are some of the realities that we'll be faced with. The world is evolving, like it or not. And some things are changing. I would have never thought the issue of homosexuality would have been taken off from the DSM-5, even the issue of pedophilia. And I'm saying today, more likely, so it could be voted into law now that in the United States, that the issue of pedophilia will not be a crime. Rather, from what I'm hearing, it would be something that would be treated as either a mental illness or some kind of treatment will be for it. Let's watch and see. So what I'm saying in essence is some of these things that we used to consider as deviant behaviors or so forth, they're becoming norms. And our children would be faced with these challenges. We need to know, and we need to discuss them in the public. Our politics will be affected. Our culture will be affected. Our religions will be affected. And guess what? Our nation will be affected. So let's have this discussion and focus on Liberia. It's good to be here. Happy New Year, you know, everyone. I look forward to another invitation. Maybe we can talk politics. But thank you.
Thank you. Glendy, you got the last word.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, everybody. I want to go back. I always like to end with Mr. Gayman because he always trick us something. So I want to ask him, there was a comment he made about Gopa and people being born before the 90s. What is that comment again? What is that comment? Can you say what did you say, Mr. Gayman, about people born before the 90s that they were involved in Gopa business? Did I hear you right?
G-Talk, do your closing.
Well, anyway, I think this was really thought-provoking. When I first saw it, it's like sometimes we shy away from topics like these, especially homosexualism and the corruption. We don't want to talk about it sometimes because of different affiliations. We may have family members that are involved in those things. Society may look at us differently, our culture, but I think it's good to continue the discourse and to continue talking about this. I want to stress one important point. I don't think anybody on here is saying that you should deviate from your cultural norm that you have believed in for many years. I think what the discussion here tonight has been about, why is it that homosexuals are treated worse than someone who is known to be a corrupt official or a child molester or a rapist. I think that's what the discussion was. But certainly, the other thing is also people should be allowed to live their choices. And just like you would disagree with their choice, they also have the right to live with what they believe in, how they feel. It may be difficult for you to accept it as an individual, but let's be tolerant. It doesn't mean that your tolerance of a homosexual means that you've accepted him. And what you're saying is you're mature enough to allow him to exist in the same space as you so that he becomes free. So I think it was a very good discussion. I like being on here with Mr. Kim. I'll always find something to close after him with. Thank you, everybody.
So next time he will close after you. we gotta be fair. Thank you so much for the time, and thank you for tolerating me discussing this, because a lot of people feel uncomfortable just talking about these topics, but we'll try our best so that we go where many cannot go, where many don't like to go. Maybe they can go there, but they don't feel comfortable. Until then, we want to close with our song that says we are all Liberians. Whether you support gay and lesbianism or not, whether you tolerate it worse than corruption and pedophilia, we are all Liberians. What is incumbent upon us is to do our very best to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Have a good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.